This is why your podcast sucks and nobody's listening to it and nobody's subscribing. Look, there are a lot of mistakes new podcasters make, but what I'm about to tell you is one of the worst they make, and it's one of the most common and easiest to fix. And by the way, if you haven't done so already, make sure you go download the free PDF called Speak Your Listener's Language, where I show you a very simple way to say what your podcast is about so that more people will show up and subscribe and listen. All right, this is easy. It's free. Just click the link in the description. Go grab that if you haven't done so already. Now look, over the course of my career as a professional speaker, I've been on literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of podcasts. And here's one thing I've recognized that most podcasters do wrong. Here's the deal. What is it? There's a lack of clarity on what exactly the podcast is about. It's a very broad, general topic, if you could even call it that. I mean, it's a podcast about motivation and relationships and confidence and, underwater basket weaving and training monkeys and dog grooming and, making people feel good. It's about whatever. I've literally had podcast hosts have me on and I'm like, well, what does success look like at the end of this podcast? And they're like, just whatever. Let's just have a good conversation. Nobody is listening to that. Nobody knows why to listen. If you're not about one very specific thing nowadays, nobody's going to listen to your podcast. Or if they do, it's not for very long. And I can hear people saying already, well, Brian, what about Joe Rogan? He's already famous. He already has hundreds of millions of followers and listeners and subscribers, and he's world famous. He's the biggest one in the world right now, the biggest podcaster in the world. He's the exception. You and I are not. You don't want to just shotgun blast the broadside of a barn when it comes to your topic. You want concentrated sniper fire right up here in the top, 3-inch corner of the doorway. All right, with your topic. You want to be specific. People are not scouring the internet for broad, generalized information. People are looking for solutions and information on particular topics. So think about your podcast. What is it about? And here's the deal. Everybody sort of starts here who's new because most people, we just don't know any better. And I used to do it too. So think about it. What is the Podgasm Marketing Podcast about? When I say I'll show you how to say what you do so you can get more subscribers and listeners to your podcast, there's no lack of clarity about what my podcast is about. It's very easy. It's very easy to understand. So here's the deal. Yours needs to be that easy to understand in one sentence. I don't know if it was Einstein or whoever said it, but basically said something to the effect of, if you can't explain something in a sentence, you don't understand it. So do you understand your own podcast? Look, again, we all start somewhere, and most people start in a place where it's just not very good. It's not very specific. Nobody really knows what it's about. If people can't tell about what the benefit of listening to your podcast is, they're a lot less likely to listen to it, let alone subscribe to it and come back. So you want to be better with that. And by the way, if you want help with that, I take on a very few select clients every month as a copywriter and a professional speaker and communicator. And I write the podcast descriptions for my clients. I do all the hard work, the heavy lifting, the mental, all the copywriting that you probably haven't taken years to learn and perfect like I have. And I just write it for them so that people like you, podcasters, can just sit down, record on things you want to talk about, and do the things you enjoy. And I do all the heavy lifting and writing out all that, the titles and the descriptions and the about and who it's for, lining all that out for you. I do all the heavy lifting. So if you're interested, if you want me to do that for you, again, I only take on a few clients a month because it's quite a bit of work. But just shoot me an email at podgasmshow@gmail.com, podgasmshow@gmail.com. But again, you cannot have a show that is about everything. Have something specifically it's about that helps people in a certain way. When you decide on that very clear, specific thing, your podcast will grow, more people will listen, and more people will subscribe. So again, if you want help with this, I'm happy to help you if I can fit you into my calendar. Just shoot me an email.